So late in the day yesterday, I started seeing posts on social media that Rick Derringer had died. And so I wanted to get on here today and just make a little video talking about Rick Derringer, but maybe take it from a slightly different angle. And so I think a lot of people remember Rick Derringer from, one of the main things is we remember him from the Edgar Winter Group. I mean, he had such an impact with this music right here. This album, They Only Come Out at Night, was produced by Rick Derringer, and you would know this album because this is the album that has Free Ride. This is the album that had Frankenstein. And if you look on the inside here, although Ronnie Montrose was the main guitar player on here, you'll see here that it says produced by Rick Derringer. And then over here, you'll see it says special thanks to Rick Derringer for slide guitar, pedal steel, bass, background vocals, and claves. And so anyway, Rick Derringer was a really important part of the music industry way back when. And I remember when I first started playing the guitar and we were kind of putting our first bands together, one of my friends said, hey, what we need to learn how to do is learn how to play the song Rock and Roll Hoochie Koo. And that's also that was one of probably maybe his signature song that everybody knows Rick Derringer for. And so, but anyway, I want to talk about him slightly differently today, though. So when Eddie Van Halen died, I remember having a conversation with a lot of people where, and this is hard for me to even believe, but there are a lot of people that go, yeah, Eddie Van Halen, would I know something? I don't know that I know any Eddie Van Halen music. And I remember telling people, I said, look, you for sure have heard Eddie Van Halen play the guitar. I guarantee it. And I'd say, have you ever heard the song Beat It by Michael Jackson? And of course, every human being on the planet has heard Beat It. And I'd say, he played the guitar solo and Beat It. And okay, so you for sure, guaranteed, had heard Eddie Van Halen. Well, it's kind of interesting because yesterday, when Rick Derringer died, you start having these similar conversations like, now, should I know who he is, Rick Derringer? Who's this Rick Derringer that died? And it's kind of almost ironic that you have a very similar conversation with people where you may have never heard anything that he'd ever done before, but something very similar to Eddie Van Halen, you've heard him play the guitar, and it's actually a parallel thing. And here's what it is. Because back after the song Beat It came out, of course, Weird Al Yankovic, everybody knows Weird Al. Weird Al did a parody of the song Beat It that actually itself became enormous. And it was the song Eat It. And so Weird Al did a whole parody, not just of the song, but of the video. And I mean, he does the Michael Jackson dancing and the whole, I mean, it's really, really funny. And so the whole world was familiar with Beat It, and then another millions and millions of people heard this hysterical parody of the song Eat It. And then in the song Eat It, kind of like the song Beat It, they had to have that guitar solo because the guitar solo in Beat It was so iconic. Weird Al had to have that same kind of thing, obviously, in the song Eat It. And so so when you listen to the guitar solo, and I didn't know this at the time, but the guitar solo in Eat It is played by Rick Derringer. And what's so great about it, I remember when I was a kid and I heard Eat It, and you're laughing, you're a kid and you're laughing at Eat It and the silly lyrics and what have you. But then you get to the guitar solo, and I was a Van Halen fan back then. I knew all about Van Halen. I was into all that stuff. And then you hear the solo, and you listen to what is kind of making fun, doing a parody of Eddie Van Halen. So here's Weird Al doing a parody of Michael Jackson, and then you hear this guitar solo come on, and you don't know how he possibly did it, but he did a parody of Eddie Van Halen. He does all the little techniques and all the little things, but he does it in such a way that it sounds a little bit kind of extreme. And of course, Rick Derringer was such a guitar player. He could have played Eddie Van Halen's guitar solo probably flawlessly, but he didn't do it that way. He executed in such a way that it actually kind of built on the humor of the song. And so anyway, if you haven't listened to it in a while, go back and listen to Eat It. And listen to that guitar solo, because that's Rick Derringer. So doing a parody in a way of Eddie Van Halen. Now, it goes a step further than this. Because what you may not realize about Rick Derringer, where you would have had not just this, the influence that he had on this album and this band, because not only was he a great guitar player and he appeared all over the place. I mean, it was Steely Dan. I mean, he was just kind of all over the place. But he was a great producer. And not only did he produce this that everybody's heard before, and not only did he play the guitar solo, but he also produced Weird Al. Almost all the great stuff that you ever heard by Weird Al Yankovic, believe it or not, let me flip this over so you can see, this album, which I think was his second studio album, but this is the one that had Beat It on, or Eat It, that's why I pulled it out. You'll see right here that it says, produced by Rick Derringer. So Rick Derringer actually produced the Weird Al stuff. And just to give you an idea of how involved he was with this, think of all these songs that you remember from Weird Al. Ricky, which is a parody of the song Mickey. Oh, Mickey, you're so fine. I Love Rocky Road, My Bologna. Another one, Rides the Bus. Eat It, of course. I Lost on Jeopardy. Like a Surgeon. Yoda. Living with a Hernia. Christmas at Ground Zero. Fat. Money for Nothing, the Beverly Hillbillies, the Beverly Hillbillies kind of parody. All that stuff was Weird Al, and all that stuff was produced by Rick Derringer. So even though Rick Derringer was a serious, amazing studio musician, amazing guitar player, amazing songwriter, and also he was also an amazing producer. And he was able to step in with a guy like Weird Al and make his music just awesome. And just like Eddie Van Halen, where you didn't realize that he'd had that impact that you'd heard him play just because he'd played on Beat It. Similarly, you've heard Rick Derringer, if you didn't realize it, playing the guitar solo on Eat It. And kind of an amazing little cherry on top of that story, where he was responsible for producing the song Eat It and playing the guitar on it. That song, Eat It, was the only time Rick Derringer ever got a Grammy. So I want to share one other thing with you. So one of the things we do on this channel is we go back and we find old newspaper articles, concert reviews, record reviews, that kind of thing. And I found this cool little article about Rick Derringer. And this apparently, he was in town, it looks like in Cincinnati, to play a concert, and they just did this short little bio on him. This is from the Cincinnati Post, Monday, November 28th, 1983. And I just thought you'd find this kind of interesting. It has just some cool little things about him in here, and I just wanted to share this with you. The headline is Rick Believes in Luck. Rick Derringer has the knack of being in the right place at the right time. In 1965, he was part of the McCoys when they managed to repel the British invasion with Hang On Sloopy, making American garage band music a worldwide #1 hit. As a producer, he was the man behind Weird Al Yankovic's rock and roll parodies, Ricky and I Love Rocky Road. And of course, this is written the year before Eat It came out. And so, and then, of course, before Fat and many of the others, but by now he's already making an impact just from these parodies with Weird Al alone. Most recently, he's been active behind the scenes, playing guitar on Bonnie Tyler's Total Eclipse of the Heart and Air Supply's Making Love Out of Nothing at All. Recently, Billboard's #1 and 2 hits. Calling from Detroit on Thanksgiving Eve, Derringer even seemed to be 2 places at once, playing guitar behind Bonnie Tyler on Bob Hope's TV special, as well as talking on the telephone. It was fun, Derringer said about working with Hope. He's a legend, right? He was very good, very professional, unquote. The latter could be said of Derringer himself, due in Cincinnati this week for a Bogarts appearance Wednesday. But after almost 2 decades in rock and roll, Derringer pretty much remains the kid from Fort Recovery, Ohio, who liked to play guitar. I was very lucky, he explained in his Midwestern twang. Luck is one of the things people never put into their equations often enough. Luck is what gave the McCoys the opportunity to do Hang On Sloopy. After that, then you have to be good and work hard to hold on to it. But getting what they call, quote, the big break usually entails a lot of luck. Having been involved in production or session work, or both, with everyone from the Osmond Brothers to Steely Dan, authored a rock and roll guitar method, and designed a Rick Derringer model guitar for a major guitar maker, Derringer has returned to the rock and roll tour grind to promote his new LP, Good Dirty Fun. Quote, I've just been off the road for the last 8 months, Derringer said of his other endeavors. We just decided to take off so I could work on those other projects and so we could have a fresher feel when we came back. I think that's one way to keep yourself self-sustaining in the music business. Otherwise, you're always worried about whether or not your next record is going to be a hit. Unquote. Now, based in New York, Derringer has kept his Midwestern roots along with his Midwestern accent. In fact, that's how he describes his music. Quote, it's all pretty Midwestern, if anything. It's not hard rock or heavy metal or English rock or Australian rock. It's just good old Midwestern rock and roll. As a 20-year veteran of rock and roll, Rick Derringer has seen quite a few changes, both in the recording studios and in the business itself. Quote, it's been continual growth all the way back from 4-track studios when I was starting. Now back in the mid-'60s, that's what you're dealing with. And think of all the changes that he went through 8, 12-track, 16, 24-track. Now the state-of-the-art studios are up to 32-track digital recording to digital mixdown onto CDs. And the music business has gotten a lot bigger. It's more like the paperback book business. It's not new. It knows how to operate now. For Rick Derringer, one thing remains unalterable: rock and roll. Now, this last paragraph, I thought this was very, very profound in its simplicity because it applies to the music industry and then it kind of applies to so many other things broadly. Now, listen to this. Music still has not changed in my eyes, he said. There's either good music or bad music, and that fact will always be the same. I love that quote because here he is, 20-year veteran. Like you said, he started playing back in the mid-'60s, and here we are moving into the mid-'80s, and he looks back and he goes, all these different changes, so many things have changed, so many things, the evolution of music, different styles have come and gone, different techniques for recording, on and on. But in the end, is the music any good? And it's such a profound, important thing to say. When you have a good song, you have a good song. There's so many other things. We get so caught up in so many other things, but when it comes down to it, is it good? And like I said, it's profound in its simplicity, and it applies to so many other things in our lives. Anyway, I just thought this would be kind of a, since Rick Derringer passed away, I thought it'd be just something maybe just to take a second and talk about him, talk about his impact in a slightly different way. We don't often talk about things like Weird Al and parodies, but here Rick Derringer was not only having such a huge impact on songs like this that just became epics, but he also was able to go have an impact in a totally different world where his impact is still being felt today through all these different areas. Hey, thanks for taking the time to visit me today. Hope you have yourself a fantastic day. Please follow the channel if you're not following already. Please like the video, and I would love to get your feedback on this topic, on Rick Derringer, what you remember about any of this music and all the other stuff that he was involved in. And please leave that down in the comments. And with that, have yourself a fantastic day.